Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Lacy Johnson of the Lacy Johnson Podcast, where each week, Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Central Time, we bring to you commentaries on various things that's going on in the news and around us, whether it's globally, nationally, locally. We try to pick items of interest and importance to you. This week, we have three things we're going to talk about here. First of all, as many of us expected, there is an attack on Elon Musk. There's an allegation of sexual harassment, lawsuit or something that happened years ago. We'll talk about that a little bit. Also, we're going to talk about recent public opinion polls, which shows that the Republicans should be able to take back the House and many other areas of government these midterm elections. And the Minnesota GOP party recently endorsed Scott Jensen as a gubernatorial candidate. We're going to talk about that whole process and his chances of actually winning Minnesota, a state that has been traditionally blue for the past few decades and where it's been a long time since Republicans won statewide office. So we'll get into all of that right now. Thanks. Well, Elon Musk. Well, first of all, before I talk about any of these issues, what you need to know about me that whatever stance I take on issues or anything else, I try to base it on principles. And there's four set of principles that I use. First and foremost are the biblical principles that I was raised on growing up as a Christian. Secondly, the principles of the Constitution and the actual Constitution itself. Thirdly, is the lessons that are the lessons that my mom and dad and my elders, including my school teachers, taught me growing up. And then a very small part of it is just things I learned myself through reading and just gaining knowledge and wisdom over the ages. But I say that's just a small component of it because biblical principles, the principles of the Constitution, and those taught my parents cover the vast majority of the principles that I base my decisions on. So, first of all, on the Musk situation, as most of you know, he made an offer, I think it was $45 billion to buy Twitter. And then, of course, and to make it more balanced, and honest and fair. Of course, those who are not into fairness or balance, they immediately start having their, shall we say, fits about the potential of Musk buying Twitter. And so, of course, we can predict that they would attack him and try to bring him down. Of course, that's their normal strategy. They don't discuss ideas or principles because they lose those discussions every time and those debates and dialogue every time. So it's normally type of personal type things, and that's what they're trying to do with Musk. Now, once again, you have to realize that the opponents of what Musk is trying to do, these are people without principles. These are godless people that we're dealing with. And so their only goal is power, is to grab power and do that by any means necessary. And that's what you're seeing here in Musk. Basically, I think it's kind of ironic that Twitter is the people that's against Musk buying Twitter are all of a sudden throwing around words like misinformation and fairness and balance, when these are the same people who for 4 years pushed Russian collusion theory. They pushed a quid pro quo Ukrainian theory. And to be honest, they pushed a lot of false information taken out of context, unscientific information, information that's not based on immunology or statistics or anything else. And they let all that bad information go out on Twitter and social media during the pandemic. So now all of a sudden they've gotten quote unquote religion and they're concerned about these things. The thing about it, too, is that the people that we're dealing with, they don't care who they destroy to get their way. They'll destroy even one of their own. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't try to destroy Joe Biden and Kamala Harris because they're a problem for them. But now the issue they have there, they're a problem of their own makings, and that's going to be a tricky bag to get out of. So they will destroy anybody. In fact, probably the saddest thing to me over recent years is that I saw them actually destroy a 3-star American general to get their way. So that's where they're at right now. Let's talk about the allegations. The allegation is that some flight attendant on the private jet of Elon Musk, that he made some inappropriate comments and action towards her. What they're saying, the narrative is that he paid $250,000 to settle a lawsuit. Now, first of all, if anyone has ever been involved in a lawsuit, and as a business person, as a person I've been involved in a few, the one thing you recognize, unless you're poor and they give you a public defender, and if they do, I really feel sorry for you, because, I mean, your goose is going to get cooked normally if you got a public defender. But if you have to go out and hire your own attorney, you understand how expensive attorney fees are. And so I don't know all the details. I'm still gathering details on that, but I can see where people could easily settle lawsuits when they really aren't guilty of what they're trying to do. So some of that might be going on here. I should say Elon Musk has denied these allegations. And in fact, he has put a challenge out to the flight attendant or her friend or whoever reported these allegations. If you really, if they are true, tell me some marks, body marks, or tattoos or something. I challenge you to make public that information, because I did not do what I'm being accused of, and therefore you would not have that any of that particular information. Now, what Elon Musk is trying to do, what is going to plan to do with Twitter, is to make it really a town hall where ideas are exchanged. And Elon Musk, once again, being a person of principles, he understands the importance of free speech, public dialogue. And by the way, with free speech, it's speech we don't like, speech that maybe sometimes hurt us and hurt our feelings in sometimes. That's what free speech is about. It's not just for speech that make us feel good, a speech that agree with our view of the world. It's any and all speech that does not violate the Constitution. And so he's willing to open Twitter up there. Now, of course, if you are unprincipled and your main goal is to grab power, you don't want any ideas out there which you consider contradicts your goals and your aims. And so, once again, why they don't want an open forum, because the only way they can win a debate or an argument is that if the American people don't hear both sides or all sides of an issue. If the American people only hear their sides. And so that's what the objective is. In fact, if you recall, and this was predictable also, because we are a believer in the government, almost immediately after Musk made his offer to buy Twitter, the Biden administration proposed something called the Misinformation and Governance Board. And I'm telling you, people, if that's not the scariest thing we've ever heard here in America, I don't know what is as far as what our government is planning on doing. But once again, you can count on them having bad ideas. In fact, just about every idea they have is bad. And every once in a while, they'll go overboard, because that's what they do, whether it's defund the police or this Information Governance Board. Sooner or later, people get wise to what they're trying to do, and then it backfires on them. So we can always count on them to do that. I call it their ideas. It's on a spectrum of dumbness, and it's according to what end of the spectrum it's on. Like I said, defunding the police and Governance Misinformation Board is on the far end, but just about every one of their ideas is on that spectrum of dumbness. In fact, I challenge everyone that know me to give me one Democrat policy that they think makes sense, and I will dissect it and show you where it doesn't make sense. And here's the thing, and I always knew this: let them get in office. As soon as they get in office, they will run this country in the ditch. And they can't help it. That's what they do. That's what their ideas do. That's what this whole America is bad, critical race theory, defund the police. That's what their ideas do, is run open borders, run America in the ground. The other thing is, and it's ironic, what Twitter want to remain is the platform where they can close the account of a sitting American president, but leave the account open of a dictator like Putin, of a dictator like the ones in Iran. They can, or the dictators like the ones in China. They don't close those accounts because those accounts don't go against the narrative of what they're trying to spread and the misinformation they're trying to spread. I think one of the most egregious things that Twitter did, aside from everything else I mentioned, they actually closed the account of the New York Post, a legitimate journalistic source, because it was printing the truth about what was on Hunter Biden's laptop right before the election. And they knew, if the American people knew what was going on with Hunter Biden, that it would affect the election and Joe Biden and lessen Joe Biden's chance of winning. I think I saw a poll where 20% of the voters indicated that if they knew about what Hunter Biden was doing, they would not have voted for Joe Biden. So these are the type of things that they're trying to control. But the bottom line is this. I think Elon Musk is one of the great pioneers of our age. With what he's doing with Tesla, with what he's doing with SpaceX, with his idea of democracy and fairness, what he's doing as far as looking towards the future, reducing the effect of carbon and tackling some of the environmental issues, and probably even more foresightful, looking at establishing a colony on Mars. I think he's very, very, very insightful and looking towards the future. And he's going to get this done one way or the other. Now, the last thing I'm going to say on this is you probably remember it was in the paper a few days ago that Elon Musk said he's almost always voted Democrat. In fact, one time I heard him, he said he's always voted Democrat, period, because he thought of them as the kindness party. And that kind of rang a bell with me. Because I think that's the only way that the Democrats win elections. People see them as kindness. And as my son once said to me, and I never forgot it, he said, "Dad, people care more about how you make them feel than what you do for them." And I think the challenge for us as conservative is to make people feel good and do positive things to change their lives. And I think, once again, Elon Musk buying Twitter is a big step against those people without principles, those godless people who are trying to take over this country and make it worse. So that's it on Elon Musk. We'll tackle the upcoming election and what the polls are saying about the upcoming midterm election in November in 2022. We'll get ready to tackle that shortly. So, just about every recent poll, and it's been that way for a while, is indicating that this midterm election of 2022 is going to bring a lot of bad news for the Democrats, and rightfully kick a lot of them out of office, because they should be held accountable for everything that's happened here since January 6th in the inauguration. Now, since they swore these people in there. Now, look, I say all the time that Democrats would win few, if any, elections if the media was fair and objective. The only way they can win with their bad ideas and their bad policies and their bad results is that the media, the education system, pop culture, big tech, they all act as their PR agents. In fact, I'm not even calling it PR, because PR is just another fancy word for propaganda. And those agencies and those institutions run interference for the Democrats, and that's how they get in office. But one thing you can almost bet on, once they get in office, they will make things worse, whether it's the economy, whether it's crime, whether it's foreign policy, you name it. They're going to make the country worse. And that's where we are right now, is that whenever and wherever they govern, the place that they're governing goes to hell in a handbasket. And we mentioned some of the issues. And there's only so much, sugar you can put on their crap. And no matter how much the media tries. So, look, when you look at gas prices, I think I paid $80 to fill up my tank, and it wasn't even on empty. And that's just crazy when you look at inflation being the highest that it has ever been, and there's no end in sight. In fact, people are predicting it's going to get worse. There's probably a recession over the hill. In fact, I was telling my friends when they were sending out all those free checks, you just can't print money. Money is like any other commodity. The more you print, the less value each individual dollar will have, and therefore you're going to need more dollars to buy it. I don't know about you, besides $80 to fill up a tank. I try to buy my eggs, range-free eggs and things like that. They're $6 a gallon right now. When you look in the area of foreign policy, getting involved in the situation over in the Ukraine, and spending $40 billion in aid there, all of that was predictable. In fact, I think it was a few weeks ago I talked about why the framers of the Constitution was against central banks, why they were against the direct taxing of labor by the federal government, because they predicted this would happen. When you get central banks, you get off the gold standard where you can just print dollars without having anything to back it up. They knew bankers would do this. And look, we don't appreciate a $30 trillion national debt. And I don't know what our people think, that you can just keep printing money to pay for that without understanding if you keep printing money to pay for it, you're going to only make the situation worse. And so our founding fathers predicted all of this. You look at, once again, since they've been in control of the country, and we'll talk about what they're doing here in the state of Minnesota and locally here, when you see North Korea once again resuming testing of nuclear missiles, when you see the bad situation they put a lot of our businesses in with bad COVID policies, and the fact that the COVID deaths were greater under this president than the last one, you think about what they've done. And once again, who would ever think we'd have a shortage of baby formula? But that's what happened when you put incompetent people, when you're voting people in for the wrong reason, when you're looking at people's identity rather than their skills and competency, and when you're deciding who's going to lead the country. So that's a lot. I mean, I don't even have to get into Kamala Harris and Biden. Y'all can see for yourself what's going on there. But I think the most important thing that I'm looking forward to, if everything goes as it appears, is just getting the Democrats out of control of the House of Representatives. With being in control of the House of Representatives, they can hold all kinds of bogus hearing, and their lapdogs in the media and the press will use that to spread their message and things, whether it's true or not. They're never interested in the whole truth or putting things in context. They're just interested in a narrative. And if the Republicans take control of the House of Representatives, they're going to reverse a lot of the bad information and misinformation out there. They're going to focus on the truth and just not narratives to get out to the American people to keep to support their ideas that they're trying to impose on the country. So I think it's going to be very important. And then I said I was going to talk about what's going on here in the state of Minnesota and here locally. Look, when I moved to Minnesota, it was one of the greatest little secrets as far as standard quality of life. There was low crime, high education, great jobs, great companies. It had a vibrant downtowns in the metro area. In fact, the city of Minneapolis is one of the few major cities where all the pro sports arenas and venues are downtown. And the one that's not downtown Minneapolis is in St. Paul. And so that says something about the vibrance of the city. In fact, I used to I still travel a lot around to a lot of major cities, and what you found out back in those days, a lot of major cities shut down after work because there was nothing to do. People were afraid to go down there. But went to Minneapolis anytime, and it was vibrant, a lot of things going on. Now you go down to Minneapolis, and actually, most people are afraid to go down there now, and that's what our current governor has done, and that's why here locally, he'll probably lose his election too, even though I'm somewhat tempered by the fact that our mayor here in Minneapolis, he's the one that let them destroy a police station. And look, as far as I'm concerned, that's at the root of all the violence and things and crime that is broken out here in the metro area, to let someone actually destroy a police station. But where I'm going with that, the voters actually reelected this guy. So that's the only way I'm tempering my enthusiasm for what might happen this election, because once again, the voters tend to not connect their votes to what's going on, because once again, they're not, well, I should say it. The results do not matter as much as how the candidate make them feel. And I guess our mayor here, Jacob Fry, made them feel better. And generally speaking, Democrats are masters at appealing to people's emotions and their instincts to make them feel good and to blame other people for their situation and make people feel good that someone else is responsible for what they're doing, and make people feel good by not holding them responsible and accountable for their own lives. But having said that, look, everywhere you look, where Democrats have come to power, have been in control, whether it's nationally, statewide, and especially in these urban inner city areas, it has gone downhill, and it will always go downhill. And so, as far as what that means for the Democrat Party, someone asked me that, I think it means that for this particular election cycle, they're in trouble. But in order to leverage this situation out into the future, I think we must really go in and get different results once we're in office. And when I say different results, I mean different results as far as crime is concerned, as far as law and order is concerned, different results as far as business and economic development and actually put money in people's pockets, different results as far as education is concerned, and different social results where we are really enjoying putting families back together, rebuilding the families, where we finally realize that the family is the basis of civilization. And we start seeing through, and I think this has happened, an organization like Black Lives Matter, who is on record as saying they are a Marxist organization out to destroy the nuclear family. I find it kind of interesting. I was thinking about it today. I haven't seen Black Lives Matter in the news much anymore. And I think because people are finally realizing them for the scam that they are, where they're raking in hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever and going out investing it in mansions out in Malibu. And they're supposed to be Marxists. Doesn't sound like a Marxist to me. I'm assuming, though, once the property value appreciate, and once they sell it, they're going to find a way to feed the hungry, give some poor family shelter or something like that. But anyway, to wrap it up, to sum it up, the Democrats are in trouble, and rightfully so, based on the latest polls. And we as Republicans or conservatives, I should say, once we get in power, we need to make sure that we put some things in place that will permanently change the political paradigm, the political landscape, where it's a lot harder for these Democrats to get in power again. But it's going to take a lot to undo it, because once again, I'll just repeat and I'll end it here. They have control of the media. They have control of our education system. They have control of pop culture. And those are the type of things that's going to be hard to overcome. And they have control over big tech. And so hopefully, tying it to the previous story on Elon Musk, hopefully we can turn the corner on some of the structural advantages that they have and change that. So going forward in the future, it will come down to more of a battle of ideas and policies rather than a battle of emotions. So I hope this election is the beginning of that whole process. Even though we're going to continue to respect people's emotions, we're going to get people to start focusing on results and how have we made a positive, measurable, visible difference in their lives. So let's go out and take advantage of if this is true and we do get in power, let's take advantage of that, focus on people's lives and improving people's lives, and the votes will come. Okay, this past weekend, week before last Saturday, weekend before last, the Minnesota GOP endorsed Scott Jensen, a local doctor here, and Matt Birk, a former NFL player and Viking and all-pro football player, as their gubernatorial and lieutenant governor gubernatorial candidates. They won out over a field that I thought was brought a lot of quality to the table. And, I don't like to talk too much about the diversity angle because a lot of people abuse that. But I did notice that the person who came in second was a black gentleman, Kendall Qualls, a businessman. He came in second and almost won it. I should note also that they had a female candidate in there. And they had a candidate who's a son of immigrants. And so those are the type of demographics and that we welcome across the board. But at the end of the day, Dr. Scott Jensen won. I think he's a good candidate. I think he's great. I think he's going to win it. Given what I mentioned before, what has happened to the state of Minnesota, how it's gone downhill. And one thing I didn't mention earlier, it's just not about the specific people in office today. It's about the whole turning totally. Well, it's about one party rule. Minnesota was better at its best when Democrats and Republicans sometimes won based on what they were saying, not based upon whether they had a D or an R by their name. And Minnesota has become so blue that all you have to do is have a D by your name, at least up until now. I tease people, they could run one of the Three Stooges and you put a D by his name, and they're, generally speaking, in the past, they'll win here. But I think we're about to turn the corner on that. One thing I like about Dr. Jensen that I think will serve him well is that he's not a lifelong government worker. He's not a lifelong bureaucrat, that he actually went to school and started a business. And that the fact that he's a doctor, that says to me that he respects science, he respects facts, he respects logic. And those are the type of things we need to bring to bear if we're going to solve a lot of the challenging problems before us. The other thing, with that different approach to solving problems, he's already reached out to the business community. He's already reached out to all the different ethnic communities within the state of Minnesota and asked the right question, I think. How can we make your life better? What are some of the issues that you're facing? And we're here to provide you support and, just as important, resources to effectively tackle these issues. Issues like business and business development, actually rebuilding business here in Minnesota. During the pandemic, during the Mayor Fry-inspired uprising, where there were riots and things, and where they basically turned the inner city of Minnesota in many places to the Wild Wild West, lawlessness here, and where police are not nowhere to be found, where people are running red lights and stop signs and everything else, and leading to chases. I think he's going to bring a different perspective on solving those issues and restore businesses. Also in the area of education, I think he has an appreciation for something like the achievement gap, where he understands that a lot of the things that we're doing nowadays would not work, where he understands that the answer to the pandemic was not to send everybody home and shut down schools, and where he would not be overly influenced by the teachers union, because trust me, and once again, I challenge anybody out there to disagree with me, to let me know, and I'll have a dialogue and a debate about it. The teachers union is one of the main barriers to a quality education across the board. Because, and I have a lot of dealing with the teachers union and with education here in Minnesota. Their priority is not the education of these students. And in fact, I think when you look at what they're trying to do now, just looking ahead, is with the critical race theory and stuff. And I tell everyone, I don't want my public education system, my government, run by the government, teaching my kids about any type of sex. That's my job. I don't want them doing that. What I want them, when I send my children to school, what I want them to teach is how to read at grade level. And when you graduate from high school, you can read at grade level. I want them to teach them math, science. I want them to teach them history. I want them to teach them about personal finance and money. I want them to teach them about health and things like that. I do not want the government via public school education teaching my kids those type of things. Anything has to do with cultural values. That is not your job. Teach them how to take care of themselves, equip them to go out and support themselves and their families, whether it's through post-secondary education in college or tech school, whether it's starting their own business. That's what I want for the public school system to teach my children. So a lot of the stuff that Dr. Jensen will bring to bear as far as tackling these problems, I'm in favor of. Crime, look, and I've been trying to tell and I got friends across the board, my well-intentioned friends, that defunding the police is not the answer, that vilifying the police is not the answer. In fact, if you really understand that we all need to take some responsibility and accountability, including the community. And I'm up front with everyone I know, and it's because I care about their lives. Things like political movements and things like that is secondary to me. What I care about are the lives of the people that's out there being victims of any type of misconduct. But I tell my sons, who I grew up in the inner city, I tell all the kids that I care about, look, it's not just the police. You as a citizen has a responsibility and need to be held accountable. And what is your responsibility? First of all, once again, obey the law. Secondly, don't resist arrest. And thirdly, make sure they see both hands at all times. And this is not some type of unfeeling type of advice I'm giving. This comes from black and minority and female police officers and others who care about these kids. This is what they're saying. And this, to me, more importantly, this is what will work and help reduce a lot of these incidents. Taxes, we got a heck of a surplus here in Minnesota. And that surplus is because we're overtaxing people. The surplus is because we are chasing wealthy people out of the states and attracting less wealthy people into the states. And I think Scott Jensen and Matt Birk understand that. I know they're doing some things to address that. And then, once again, I talked about the metro area, what the current administration, both Waltz, Jacob Fry, Congressman Omar, DA Keith Ellison, our Secretary of State Simons, what they've all done has really drove, once again, the whole state and the metro area into the ditch. And they don't seem to appreciate the fact that our money, the tax dollars, are generated mostly in the metro area where we have most of our businesses at. And so those are the type of things that I would like to see. Basically, it boils down to this. If you want to hold politicians accountable, you do it with your votes. And, it wouldn't matter to me what party has been leading Minnesota over the past few years. Democrat, Republican, Green, Conservative, Libertarian, Independent, Polka Dot, Party for Mars, given the track record of what that political leadership has done in the state of Minnesota, I think they all need to go. And Dr. Scott Jensen, is going to be a refreshing change to all this craziness, both ideal-wise, policy-wise, and result-wise, that has happened in the state of Minnesota over the past 4 years or so during the terms of Governor Walz. And so I do think he has a great chance of winning. You have to go out and make that case. But what I say to Dr. Scott Jensen or any politician, and not to practice politics as usual, I often think about the documentary on the founding of the wreckage of the Titanic. There was many attempts to find it, but the guy who really found it, I never forget, he said this: I took a totally different approach. And that totally different approach he took, I think, was everybody else was actually looking for the wreckage itself. He started looking for the debris and followed the debris to the wreckage. And where I'm getting to is that we need a different approach to what's going on here. And when I'm in the politics, and what I'm saying to Dr. Jensen and anyone else is, look, let's take a totally different approach to politics. Instead of focusing on votes as our primary objective, let's focus on the objective, once again, of improving people's lives, and then the votes will follow. So once again, thank you very much for allowing me into your atmosphere, I suppose, for this time. And we will see you again next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. Once again, this is Lacy Johnson. Go out to my website, lacyjohnson.com, subscribe, click the bell for notification, and then once again, let them know that you like these videos. And I have an online store with paraphernalia and stuff in that you can purchase, and also you can donate to the podcast if you like what you hear. If you don't like what you hear, you can't take any money out of my account, but what you can do is send me some comments. So looking forward to hearing from you. Good night, Lacy Johnson, for the Lacy Johnson Podcast, weekly podcast. Thank you very much.